If you need any My Team grinds in any mode, hit up my boy Witty for safe, reliable, and the cheapest grinding services around. Hit him up on Twitter. You won't be disappointed. Yo, what is good, YouTube? Welcome back to another JC2K video. In today's video, we are going to be going through and ranking the best point guards in NBA 2K25 My Team here on this tier list. Before we hop into the video, if you haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Help me push towards the 40,000 subscriber mark on the channel. I upload every single day, multiple videos a day. Would really appreciate it if y'all do subscribe. And without further ado, let's hop right into it. We got 45 of the best point guards in the game. Basically, pretty much every single Opal and Dark Matter PG plus Pink Diamond. Stephon Castle is the best Pink Diamond point guard. And there you go. We're going to start with Gilbert Arenas, who I think is right in the middle. Very solid. Smooth jump shot. Not a bad card at all. Decent defensively. He's a good slasher. His movement isn't terrible. Like overall, he's a very solid card. I'm not going to sit here and say he's best of the best, but he's definitely viable. Mid B tier feels like a right spot for him. Magic is S tier. Size and switchability defensively is what gives him his value, plus that Darius Garland dribble style. He is an elite level card, really good finisher as well. Definitely, even though he doesn't have the shooting ability, he is an elite card across the board. Bradley Beal, low B, high C. I mean, there's a lot of bad point guards on this list. There are a lot of bad Opals, especially. So I think I'll go B tier for him, like low B. Jumper's smooth. He's 6'4". I mean, he's not a bad card at all. He's not horrible defensively. He's a good slasher. Like, solid card, not an insane card, in my opinion. I think it's probably pretty fair to put him in that B tier. Ja, at this point, is C tier. Doesn't have the movement. He's got the slashing and the jump shot, but he does not have the movement or the size to be an elite level point guard. To me, he is C tier for sure. I don't love that card. I do think LaMelo's going to crack the S tier. I have 6 or 7 guys in S tier or so. LaMelo's in that top group. I think defensively he provides a lot of value with his size again. It's what makes him really, really solid. And as a whole, he's definitely a good option at the PG spot. D-Lo, not a big fan of. Doesn't have top tier movement. The jumper's fine, but not insane. He's not an elite defender. I think he's better with the duo, but to be fair, as is, I think C tier is the right spot for him. Kyrie, I'm going to have a bunch of D tier guys. I'm a low key tempted to put Kyrie. I think I'll put him C tier because he's fun to move with. His jumper's money and he's not horrific as a slasher. Now he still has the issues with defense, but I still think C tier is fair for Kyrie. I actually think he's a very solid card. Stephon Castle is high level defensively. Offensively, he's not amazing, but I feel like low A, high B is probably the right spot for him. His size and defense is what makes him really, really valuable at the PG spot. I think A tier or B tier is probably the way to go with Stephon Castle. Steve Francis's jumper is atrocious. He's D tier. I cannot stand his shot at the point guard position. You got to have a good jumper. He does not have that. He is a definite D tier. Tyler Hero, I can't go higher than C tier. I think he's worth them both Agent Zero and Bradley Beal. Not elite defensively, not an exceptional slasher, not a great card either. Jalen Green will go high B. I don't think he's that much better, if really better at all, than Gilbert Arenas, Bradley Beal. Movement's okay. Jumper's solid, good slasher, but not an insane defender, not like a god tier shot creator either. Fine card, not an insane card. I think C tier for him. B tier for him as well. Cade Cunningham, low key has an argument for like the last S tier spot. If I'm going to put 7 guys in S tier out of 45, I think Cade makes it. If I'm only putting 6, probably not. I think we'll go 7 and we'll put Cade in the S tier. He's a very solid card. His size is valuable. That trade escape is nice. His jumper is money. Very good card still. Doesn't have a great fade and his hezzy isn't good, but as a whole, he's a really good card. Jamal Crawford moves well, not a horrible slasher. Jumper's super smooth. I actually think he's pretty solid. I take him over the other guys in C tier. I think B tier for him. Dwayne Wade, the non-pro pass Wade, provides a lot of defense, but has a bad jump shot and bad movement. And while he does provide a lot of defense, I can't put him higher than low C realistically, because the jumper is terrible on regular and he doesn't have much movement either. It's on normal. I don't think he's very good. Isaiah Thomas doesn't have great movement. He's super undersized. He is just not a very good card in my opinion. I think D tier for him. Darius Garland, fun offensive card, but not good enough to be any higher than like low C, high D realistically. I think I'll go low C for now, but even that feels a little bit generous with Darius Garland. The main reason I'm doing that is because his movement is pretty good, but he is very undersized. Donovan Mitchell's probably the best of pretty much the small point guards, guys 6'3" and below, because he's got a 6'10" wingspan. He's an elite level slasher. His jumper's nice and he's got a good player build for his height. Still don't think he's great though. Can't go higher than B tier. Trae Young is D tier. No defense at all. Can't dunk. Not a card I would use. Damian Lillard, I think he's worse than Darius Garland. Similar offensively, but without the same movement, and defensively, again, undersized and not extremely elite. I think D tier for him as well. Gary's going to get an S tier spot. Really like Gary. I think he's very, very good all the way around. Jumper is money. Defensively, he's viable. He's a little undersized, yes, but he's got one of the best point guard jumpers in the game, and overall, he's a very good card. I definitely have him S tier. Oscar Robertson, I'm not going higher than B tier. 6'5", kind of a jack of all trades, master of none is how I describe Oscar Robertson. He's good at everything, but he's not great at anything. I think B tier is probably the highest I could put him at this point. I don't think he stands out by any means at the point guard position at this point. Zach LaVine, I'm going A tier. I like this card a lot. I think his jumper's nice. I think he's a great slasher. His movement could be a little better, and so could the defense, but it's not terrible. I think as a whole, definitely a viable option, and definitely a guy who is deserving of a top A tier spot. Just wouldn't put him higher than A tier. I think A is the right spot for him. Jalen Brunson moves good, but super undersized and not a great slasher. Fun to use, yes, but not what I would consider an extremely elite card. I think C tier for Brunson. Russ's jumper stinks. His movement, besides his dribble style, isn't great. And I mean, he's a little undersized in his own right. I just don't like that card that much either. Baron Davis got a nice behind the back and a smooth jumper, but besides that, not much movement. He's a good slasher. He's not great defensively, though. I think C tier is the highest I could go with him because I actually do like the jumper and he's got the behind the back. Reeves is going to get an S tier spot as well. I think he's probably the 6th best point guard or so in my team. Definitely a very, very good card, though. Great shot creator, solid defensively, good slasher, super duper solid card. I think he definitely deserves an S tier spot. Jason Kidd's going to give us yet another C tier guy. Good defensively, but not great as a slasher, and his jumper isn't top tier. I think he's probably pretty similar to Dark Matter Dwayne Wade at that tier. John Wall, right there with Donovan Mitchell, is the best short point guards because his escape is good, his jumper is great, his slashing is elite. I think there's a good amount to like about him, but the size still hurts the card. Can't put him higher than B tier. I don't like Steph cards this year at all. I think he's worse than Brunson. I think he's legitimately D tier. Super small player build, does not really defend much at all, and honestly, offensively, he's not a slasher, and his movement isn't quite what it used to be. His jumper's more consistent than it used to be, inconsistent than it used to be as well. I think D tier for him. I'll go C for Jerry West because he is 6'5". He's good defensive. He's got a good behind the back. Jumper isn't top tier. Slashing isn't top tier, but he's not a bad card. I think C tier is fair for him at this point. Moncrief gives you a lot of defense, an 85 driving dunk, and a really smooth jumper and a good fade. Problem with Moncrief is mainly the fact that his actual 3-point rating is pretty low, and I think that pretty much holds him back as a card because of that low 3-point rating. I think that is why I can't put him any higher than like low B tier. MJ is the best point guard in the game. That one's a no-brainer. S tier, obviously, exceptional card. Does everything well. No-brainer S tier there. Tony Parker's terrible. Easy D tier. Jumper's terrible. Undersized. Does nothing well. Chris Paul, I'm sorry. If he was 6'3", 6'4", he'd be C, maybe even B. As is at 6 foot without a top tier shot. I think he's D tier. I'll put James Harden in A tier. Very solid card, smooth jump shot, defends his butt off, or not defends his butt off, but defends okay. I wish he had better movement, but his slashing's good, his jumper's great, and he's got enough size to compete defensively. Definitely a good card. Iverson doesn't move that well. Jumper's fine, but not insane, but he's also extremely undersized, just like Chris Paul. Not a fan of him. Steve Nash just kind of sucks overall. I don't think that card's really particularly good at anything. I think he's easily D tier. I would have Pro Pass Wade in A tier. Definitely think he's a lot better than the non-Pro Pass Wade. Better enough to go a couple tiers higher. Definitely a very viable option still at the point guard position. Good defensively, does a lot of things well. He's A tier. Darren Williams, another guy with a bad jumper who's undersized and not extremely complete. I think he's another D tier guy. Mark Price, good jump shot, but no defense, no slashing, lack of size. Again, not going to cut it. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander does get an S tier spot. Top 3 or so point guard in my team. Definitely top 4. Does everything well. Smooth jumper, good movement, good finisher, good defender. He's just good at everything. He's kind of like Oscar Robertson, except better at everything. Jack of all trades. Maybe not the best shooter or the best shot creator or the best defensive point guard, but he's among the best at all of those things. Definitely a great card. Derrick Rose, lack of a high level release is what kills D Rose for me. I just think Baron Davis is better. I think D tier for him is probably the right tier as well. And honestly, so is Pete Maravich. Despite being 6'5", his jumper sucks. He's not elite defensively. Not a big fan of him either. Last 2 cards. J.R. Smith is going to go A tier. I think he's a worse version of like a LaMelo, not quite as good defensively. Wish the jumper was a little better. Still doesn't have top tier movement, but the jumper's not bad. He's got good size. He's a great slasher. He's a very solid card. Still definitely viable. And then Penny Hardaway, the Darius Garland dribble style at his size is what makes him valuable. Good size, which helps defensively. He's got a 90 driving dunk. And he's got that Darius Garland dribble style. Wish the jumper was a little better, but I still think he's good enough to go in that A tier. So a little bit of a bottom heavy list there because I included so many of the opals that just aren't very good cards, but wanted to do a thorough job of pretty much getting to nearly every single point guard in the game. The only guy that I think I kind of left off here that you might want to know my thoughts on is Diamond Dyson Daniels. I didn't include him because he's a diamond, but he low-key probably should have been here because of his defense. He would be A as well, in all honesty, because of the defensive ability and the 6'7" frame. Legitimately, despite being a diamond who's been out for a long time, he just has a skill set that is extremely valuable at the point guard position still. So with that being said, that is going to do it for this tier list. I hope y'all did enjoy the video. If you did, make sure you hit that like button, leave a comment, and subscribe. I'll be back with more 2K content very, very soon, and I appreciate y'all. Peace.